Hello, everyone. Give folks some time to join in, and I'm going to do a little check on my end to make sure we are streaming. But we are here and oh, look, it's so funny. I just logged on the YouTube and I had been watching your TED Talk, and it's The Stars and the Blackness Between Them book review by Ghost Reader is at the top.
Wow.
SEG Book Club. Oh, 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 it did it. Okay, we are here and there are people in the room. So if you have pulled in, hey, Nadia, so good to see you. Please pull up and engage, comment along. This is going to be a really, really good discussion. Oh, man, you know what? I definitely was watching videos to make sure I pronounce your name right, and now I'm nervous.
Oh, it's okay. You can always ask me.
I know, but it was I wanted to be because the thing is, I'll hear a name and then just I see the syllables in my head and then I redo it. But it's Junauda.
Mm-hmm.
I got it right. Okay.
You did.
I got this is too good of a book to not get it correct, because I'm so excited to have you here because you are our first book of 2022.
Wow,
The Stars and the Blackness Between Them. I was on vacation in Mexico crying my little heart out because this was such a beautiful read. It wasn't even a cry because I'm sad and I'm down. It was I loved the love. I loved the representation. I loved so many of the themes in the book. And so I am very excited that because you're working on another book right now.
Yeah, I am. And
So,
this is actually just putting so much love in my heart, just how much people love this book, and just seeing how even 2 years later, and I didn't get to really tour my book like that. So all of this is just so fun, so thank you.
Yeah, no, we really appreciate you making the time for us. This is a very big deal. And I just really hope that, if people have the chance to watch this author chat, that they pick up the book after if they haven't already. Sometimes it takes a little bit more motivation to get people to read and get into it. And, they're scared or they're worried. But I have nothing bad to say about this book. It was all love. And I'm really happy that we kicked off the year with this book because it just started so much great discussion. So if you're tapped in here, please make sure to follow the book club on Twitter. I know some of y'all are insiders and y'all wondering what's going on, but we are in the midst of switching over our website. So we'll have more details on this later, but you can join the book club. Come on over. All the details are in the description box. So let's get into this conversation. You were beforehand getting ready to ask me my astrological sign, but it's funny because I definitely looked up yours.
Were you surprised?
No, because I was wondering, maybe I was like, is she a big Whitney fan because she's a Leo too? Also,
Are you a Leo?
No, girl.
Oh,
I'm a fire sign, but not a Leo.
Okay, I would guess Sag. Aries?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I can see Aries. Okay.
Yeah. I'm an Aries with a Gemini rising and a Taurus moon.
See, I was going to guess Taurus, actually.
Really?
Yeah. But I could definitely see Gemini.
Yeah.
And I was thinking Sag because of your, deep study and kind of ability to just hold so many different arguments. And and you don't seem afraid. But all fire signs kind of have this fearlessness.
It's
almost.
the Gemini rising.
Mm-hmm.
See, but your side, I was like, okay, because you do have this magical ethereal essence. I was like, the Cancer makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
The water makes sense, right? But I was like, I was wondering if you had Pisces somewhere in your main houses.
No Pisces. You have any other guesses?
Libra.
Yes.
Okay. I think Libra might be your rising sign.
Mm-mm.
It's your moon?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if you're a Cancer sun, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're a Libra moon.
Mm-hmm.
The rising, I don't know. Maybe we'll get more into this conversation. I'll see how you think. I mean, I read your book, right? Aquarius?
No.
It has to be an air sign, so then it'd be Gemini.
Well, I have a lot of Gemini in my chart, but it's not
Okay.
my rising. But it's the same. It's in, well, I don't want to throw you off. I'll let you guess.
You can't even throw me a hint.
Oh, no, no. Okay.
I'm
It's
failing.
ruled by the same planet as Gemini.
Mercury.
Yep.
I don't Scorpio? I don't know. What else is written by
Virgo.
Virgo. I would have never guessed that at all.
Mm. Yeah, the
'Cause you
Virgo is like what gathers my Cancer sun and my Libra moon to actually get shit done.
well, I guess it makes sense because I was an art major at Howard University, and like you go to
Mm.
HBCU, everybody talks about astrology. Well, this was the early 2000s, so astrology
Oh,
wasn't as hot as it is now. But we had like this thing where we would always talk about what the sun signs of everybody in the art department was, and I just assumed because it was art, it was going to be mostly Gemini, and it was. But it was interesting because Pisces, Libra, and Virgo, when they were in the program, they were all in the same silo of the program. And the
mhm.
Virgos were always the ones who were very much so about getting the work done exact. And so I think that also speaks to like the exactness of your book.
Mm. Wow, you feel there's
Because
an exactness to it?
yeah, I really felt it was just well done. And I think for like,
Mm.
it's like you take on a trope that like as someone who read a lot as a teenager popped up especially in the 2000s around
Mhm.
the lover who has like a fatal disease or something happens to them that's detrimental, and then it's like this like chase after them and like where do they go, it's easy for that to get stereotypical, but
Mhm.
it's like it was done with like such like je ne sais quoi. I don't know. It was just something I don't feel like it could be replicated. You know what I mean? I think
Right.
there's this idea that it's a story, like the framework of the story is something that's been told. But I think there's just such a preciseness in the way you delivered it that there's not really a way for someone else to like redo it or do the same thing.
Mm. Yeah, no, it's interesting because I kind of fell backwards into being a young adult writer, or this book in a lot of ways came from being an activist. I mean, I'm a artist, like a performance artist, and did circus. Like I do a lot of different kinds of art, and then but always a lot of writing. And then I then just got this idea about like sort of this existential conversation between a kid who had this, sort of mysterious illness and then a man on death row. Like somehow they would be, in conversation with their existentiality, and just the way that we could have a lot of compassion for a young child or a Black kid with a mysterious illness. However, living in America is to be Black, to be like living in a
Mm.
mysterious illness. You don't know when you're going to get caught or got. And so yeah, so it was just interesting. I think that's kind of like, so anyways, when I started writing these chapters, um I wasn't really like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go get published, this book is gonna get published. Like basically I shared some chapters with a friend who shared it with somebody who is in the book business, and they wanted to make it happen. And then all of a sudden I realized, oh, this is a trope. The sick kid is a trope. And then I was just like, but it wasn't like kind of till far in, like to me,
Yeah.
like, I wasn't like, oh, I don't want to work with or against the trope. To me, I have such a relationship with ancestors. I have such a relationship with kind of like friends who died, of being a part of movements where we focused on death. So I think I was having a conversation around death and dying and not about sick kids. Or whatever. Like to me, I think whatever way my book fits into that genre, like I don't have an issue with it, but it definitely wasn't a thing where I had a consciousness around it. And then when I kind of realized it was a thing, I kind of like cringed. But
But
then I
it's
was like,
doing it
let
so
me just do my thing.
well.
Let me just
It's
do
so
my thing.
good. But I also think that's what makes it relatable because there's some familiarity to like these stories, but then like you get comfortable with it and it's like this surprise. Like the ending is just like, oh. I think I cried the most at the ending. I was like in Oaxaca in my hotel bed, and my homegirl looks over at me. I'm like, I just need a moment. Please. No, it was a cathartic cry. It was good. But let's get into these questions because a lot of
Great
questions will
question.
hit on the things that I'm discussing here. So, without sharing too much about your secret sauce, can you tell us what your process of crafting the book was? Were the inclusion of particular themes or representation important to you, or was it unintentional?
Hmm. I think like with writing the book, I really just let the book read me almost, like I think just the amount of writing, meeting the characters. Initially, the book wasn't a queer book. Initially, it was like a Black man and a Black young man, and there was always going to be like a diaspora. Hi,
Mhm.
Minna. I'm seeing like, I was
Your
talking when I know.
your peoples, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, I feel like I initially was just curious about that existential conversation. And then when I started writing it, then I spoke to my mentor, and my mentor was like, you want to make you a gay book, Alexis Duval. She's like, you want to make you a gay book.
That's
And
a
I
good
was, yeah. And I was like, yeah, I do. And also too, like I came out, I guess later in life, like I came out at 30,
yeah.
so I think there's a part of me that a lot of my kind of understanding that that's an identity that I could feel. And I think this is kind of one of the questions actually down the line. But like for me, like it definitely evolved. Like the book evolved, when I realized Afua, like I knew that I, as a young person, read a ton of books about like, all of these like freedom fighters, like Black revolutionaries who were, writing from prison or writing from exile. A lot of that politicized me, So I think for me, in thinking about these characters, like a lot of it was drawing from different components, and then just like reading different prison writers. Um, and then like I forgot when I realized a fool was an astrologer, And I actually got to interview a brother who was not on death row but incarcerated for several years of his life, who was an astrologer. And he's the one who, kind of let me know about um how would he just, yeah, just like kind of these like underground knowledge, sort of spaces and society, not societies, but I guess kind of societies, people who study like ancient philosophies and things like that. So to me, I was very and then Whitney Houston. So like that's the thing. I don't know. I don't know if I'm answering this like, I'm just gonna answer it the best way I can. But like Whitney Houston, I was at a friend's house in Atlanta, and there was like this big Whitney Houston picture book. And this was like early in the process of me writing the book. And I remembered in that moment a story about Whitney Houston that someone had told me. This is after Whitney Houston had died, of course, but I just remembered her queerness. I remember somebody when I lived in New York. This is years before, she died. I lived in New York in like 2006. And I was working at Alvin Ailey's youth camp, and one of the women who I worked with was the like tap teacher, and that's when the Bobby Brown and Whitney Houston reality show was on, and she was like talking about Whitney a bisexual, and I was like, I don't know Whitney's a bisexual. She's like, oh yeah, everybody knows about her girlfriend. I remember Whitney's the crazy one. She's like, Whitney's the wild one. She's like, Robin used to get her together. And I was like, what? And I didn't know anything. So this is 2006. And then, Whitney dies, I think 2012. And then
Yeah.
I'm writing my book 2017. And, just all of a sudden I'm looking at Whitney and I'm just like, man, like I really want, I'm just curious about her queerness, like I think there's so much that I know for me as like a person that actually, repressed queerness within myself for a lot of my adulthood. Like I think about the realms in which Black women often feel like our identities have to be shrinked and hidden, or, they're inconvenient to be our full selves, even for us to be curious about it. And I think particularly for a Black celebrity like her, who I think like so many of us just love, especially all, I just think like as I love Whitney Houston. I love her still, So I feel like, that was an ancestor. Because then what started happening, because this is about Leo ancestors for you. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So me and my wife are like in Amsterdam, and we go like looking for a gay club, as you do. And we see this like, huge frame picture of Whitney Houston. And I'm like, what? It's just like when I'm deciding like Whitney's gonna be in the book in some way. I don't know how, but Whitney's like, oh, I'm gonna be in your book. I'm gonna let you know.
Yeah.
The next day, we go to this art museum in Amsterdam, and I could send you these pictures. Literally, there's this like huge painting of Whitney Houston in this museum. And I'm
Mhm.
like, what? Like the next day, I'm like,
It's all signs. She pulled up on you and demanded.
And then she showed up at the grocery store. We're at the grocery store that day. She's so like just sort of the ways that, just kind of the sauce or whatever. I just think it's like listening and just seeing the patterns and pulling it in. And for a while, I was just writing astrology poems. I didn't know how it was going to fit in the book. But when I couldn't write the prose, I would just write poetry. And then I was like, it ended up in the book. It figured its way in the book, so.
Okay. Well, moving to the next question is because it's well, the next question is, how did you feel before the process, during the process, and the end process of writing the book? Did you have a left it all on the pages proud moment? Because to me it sounds like you thoroughly trusted yourself,
Yeah.
which I think produces really good art when you can trust in the work you're doing.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it's interesting because it's my first book, but I've done like a lot of circus and performance art and installation art and puppet art. And so I think like for me, a lot of kind of knowing myself as an artist had been shaped, but I definitely feel in this book, because books are so long, like you write them for a very long time. So, it'd be like, oh, okay. You could just really get juicy with it. Like with a performance, you might be like, oh, okay, you do as much as you can. And sometimes you have an idea, but then opening night, you didn't finish the outfit, so you cut that. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just sort of, what like the show goes on, and whatever the show is, it is. But with the book, it's, has a whole other kind of weight to it and time, to do it. So for me, like I remember certain moments, like when I realized what the ending was going to be, because for a long time I was like, I don't know how this book is going to end, and I don't want this girl to not, like, I didn't know what was going to happen, honestly, and then I remember like being like, oh, that's what happened. And then I looked and I saw that like other parts of the book were already leading up to that. But, I hadn't done it consciously. I think
Yeah.
part of it is like you lose yourself on the page, hopefully, you know, every day. So I don't feel like there's a moment where I was like, oh, I left it on the page. I feel like there's moments like when that Queenie chapter, when we go back in the day, where she's back in Trinidad and she beats that kid's ass. Like that was after I went to Trinidad to do some research because I wanted to like kick it with, queer and trans Trinis to really get a sense of like what, because I'm like first generation and my dad is Crucian. My mother's Trini, my dad is Crucian. So
Mhm.
I wanted to like kick it with Trinis in Trinidad who are queer and just get all of the textures of what that is and not default to any tropes or, whatever. And I was hanging out with my great aunt, and she was telling me all these stories about my grandma used to whoop ass. I was like, because my grandma, my Trini grandma she's an ancestor now, but like, I just knew her as this, she could be fair. She would whoop your ass, but like, I didn't not gratuitously.
You're giving all these caveats, but yes.
She's a Gemini too. My grandmother's a Gemini.
That's why I used to give all these caveats, because she was what she wasn't, but she was not. But yes.
But that's how like grandmas are. Like by the time you meet them, they've been a person and then they've been a mother and then now they're a grandmother. So I feel like the ways that when like Queenie chapters would come up and I'd be like, I'm trying to write about these girls. And Queenie's like, no, you're trying to write about me. You know what I'm saying? And that was fun. Like I felt like there was just times the book always surprised me and I just would write. I'd be like, okay.
I love it because there's like books that we've read that have been really, really great books. And then the one critique people will have about the book is the ending. because it seems like, well, they had to end the book, and so they, they went ahead and ended the book, and it's like, ah. But this just it felt like such a whole cathartic, complete read. The ending
Mm.
felt like it was a very intentional ending. It didn't feel like, okay, we've gotten to the point where the book has to end, so now I will end it. It felt like, no, the book led us here, and this is
Mm.
now it's time. And the journey actually continues. It doesn't end here, but it continues in you. I love.
I
Did I
love
say
that.
I loved it already?
Yo, like you loving my book is like that's like such a high honor, high respect, because
Yeah.
like you don't take like you don't pull no shorts. Like I see you. So I'm like, okay,
No,
thank
if I
you.
didn't like it, I just wouldn't host the author chat. That's how y'all can tell whether I like a book or not. Am I sitting down to do it? I think you already kind of answered this, but did you ever have a moment where you considered not writing a queer book? And did you or even your wife have any reservations about the process of publishing a young adult queer love story?
No, not really. I think my wife, like, I think I'm always doing weird things. Like, she doesn't know what, like, when we first got together, I was writing and directing a web series that, like, I have no money to do, but I'm shooting out of my office, auditioning my friends and stuff like that. And then I was doing this puppet parade, and, I'm always up to something. So yeah, and I was writing these chapters, and I think that's the thing, like I'm always writing, so um and then I was like, all of a sudden I had a opportunity to get a book deal, so I was like, oh shoot, oh, I can do this, okay, I'm gonna write this shit.
No,
Oh,
but
that's
you did
okay.
it, and you did that. No, no, no. It was good. It was
Yeah, so I think like for me it was I I think the reservations came. No, I feel like for me, like I really wanted to write a queer book that was juicy and sensual and gave like it's something that me as a young person, because as a young person I always wanted to find the little juicy sexy parts in a book. And I also there weren't many books where black girls were romantic protagonists, um and certainly not in queer space, so for me, like once I got clear that I was writing a queer book, like I wanted to make it, and then also I had some jobs, like there was a job I had where I was working, because a lot of my work is in youth work, or, before I became more of a full-time artist, I was a youth worker, but often I did it simultaneously. So there was a job I had while I was working on the book. And it was like, this group of black girls who were, somehow had gotten in trouble. I don't know. How they put them in trouble for everything,
Yeah.
they were just a cool ass group of black girls. And a lot of them are queer. And the way that the black girls were queer versus the way, like, I was so closeted and repressed as a teenager.
Mm.
And here these girls are like, oh, is that your boyfriend? She's like, you, I do not like boys. And, or like this other one was like, I don't talk to your ex-girlfriend no more because the way she did you, you my best friend. Like there just wasn't this like stigma around it. They just
Yeah.
were fluid, in this way that I really realized the audience I was writing to wasn't the audience of my repressed queer. Like I think a lot of writers are writing books to their younger selves. You can't help it, like you're in conversation with your younger self if you're a young adult writer. And I also was emboldened by the young people and the way that they're in like comfort with their
Mm.
queerness. It's not a othering thing they have to step into. It's a thing
Yeah.
that they get to include with themselves. So they definitely were kind of seal the deal of me being like, okay, I'm gonna get sensual and free and like messy and raw with the feelings.
That's
So
why I loved it so much. Did you consult with an astrologer to help you get more knowledge about astrology?
yeah, I did to some degree. Yeah, for sure. Like the brother who I said was you know had incarceration in his past and was an astrologer, like him and I spoke. My homeboy, Zai Gray, he's a black astrologer who does a lot of kind of like ancestral African astrology. which and I'm like have been an astrologer, like a lay astrologer, probably since I've been 9, you know? So I've always just been a student of astrology. So a lot of the astrology was just like me kind of sitting with the spirits of each zodiac sign, you know, like when I'd write the poems, and really thinking about like, okay, how do I think about the characters astrologically? You know, how do I think about the structure of the work as an astrological work? You know, so like trying to think of all of the infusions of astrology in the piece, and even thinking about how it's the language that Afua sees through. You know, so yeah, so I just read it. I read a ton. Like my astrology books, like are all right here. It's just like crazy. Like there's not an astrology book I don't want or need. So yeah.
I just downloaded a new astrology app, Time Passages.
Mm. Is it
Apparently,
cool?
it's, like, better than well, because somebody was saying Delete CoStar is not good. It's Time Passages is, like it's weird, though. I don't know, because it doesn't, like, look I don't know, can you see it? It doesn't, like, look pretty,
Mm. Mhm.
but it, like, tells me, like, the placement of, like, my Mars is square my natal sun. I don't know, bruh.
Oh. Okay, I'm gonna check it out.
Transitioning like, yeah, it's telling me, like, transitioning aspects. Mars trine natal Mars. I don't even know what that means, but yeah, okay, sure. Sun sextile natal. Okay, and then it gives you like a little review of what that means. So there we go.
I'm gonna check that out. I don't know. I also do pattern. Do you know the pattern?
Yeah, I so pattern because pattern doesn't explicitly tell you that it's an astrology
Yeah,
app, even
exactly.
though that's very much so what it is. And I like it because it kind of walks you into it. But sometimes mine is very repetitive. I think it doesn't even know what to tell me anymore. It's like, girl, you free. It just keeps telling me I'm free and that like I'm different. And it's like, yes, heart emoji. Yes. Tell me something new. You don't want to be in a traditional relationship. Yes. Period. Okay. Were there specific goals you had in the representation of the parents? I really felt like there was a diverse range of positive representations, particularly with Black fathers and the Black male family members. I
Mhm.
was kind of surprised that there was just great overall representation of like Black guardians who were still they weren't perfect. They were still imperfect human beings, but it was like a real holistic representation. And I loved it.
Yeah, yeah. No, I just feel like I know a lot of parents like the parents I wrote about. I think there's a lot of healing work that folks are trying to do as Black folks who came up in the 80s and 90s and had all these stigmas around our families. Like,
Yeah.
actually, I was watching the video you were doing on the toxic Black mother trope, you know, which I thought is like, yeah, like how you know, there's so much things that like came for us as families, you know, and then as Black people, as Black families, and then we're kind of stigmatized in a way. And that there's so many wonderful representations of great Black parents, you know, even still. And not in these like fake ass, like Huxtable ways either, but like people who are like, yeah, working class, who are making space for their children, who are, you know, questioning themselves. Yeah, you know, like to me, and also the hip hop generation. Like to me, I'm like, these are the people of the hip hop generation. Like I definitely thought of, you know, people like Erica Badu or, you know, like these sort of myself as a mom, you know.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, so to me, I wanted to just kind of hold space for a dimensional parenthood. And even like, you know, and thinking about like Audrey's mom, who's like definitely, you
Yeah.
know, was a violent, in that instance at least with Audrey. And I think like, how do you hold space for there to be, you know, all kinds of parents that aren't always healthy and able to show up for you, but
Yeah.
that there's also context, you know, for who everybody is, you know, or there should be, you know, and I think that was kind of what I was exploring with like some of these past chapters and things like that is that Makiba comes from a context. Queenie is a context. You know, sometimes you can have a really cool relationship with your grandma and not your mama. Sometimes, you know, there's a whole bunch of different possibilities of, but yeah,
Yeah.
I definitely was intentional. Well, yeah, because I think like to me, like with writing a book, sometimes you feel like, oh, well, like people, I don't know. I mean, this is problematic, but I remember like a white, and they're cool, but like this white, this person interviewed me around the book, and they were like saying that it was very surprising, the representation of, like, they just had never seen that before, and I was just like, yeah, that's fucked up.
Mm. Yeah, even like Audrey's cousin, the male cousin who she was close to.
Episode.
Yeah, who gives her the cookbook and the recipes. And I definitely want it to be Mabel's mother. Maybe not vegan. Maybe I'll get a little yoga. Maybe I'll take on some aspects of the dad. I mean, I have bad allergies, but in my heart of hearts, one day I will have a garden. True, but yeah, maybe. So we got the astrological signs of the girls. But what were the astrological signs of the parents? Or did I miss it?
I don't know if I think I wrote it down in a book somewhere, but I can't think of, because like I had like this notebook as I was writing my book, like to track that stuff. I feel like now thinking about it, I don't know. I'm cool with us coming up with it together for now. Shoot, 'cause I don't know if I have like an answer, and I don't want to like pull it out my ass.
I read books and then forget names, so I don't. The parents.
So Coco is Mabel's mom.
Okay.
Saquon is Mabel's dad.
Yeah, and then Audrey's father was giving me Pisces. He just reminded me of somebody that I know that's a Pisces. Huh?
I could see that.
He reminded me of my own. Yeah, my own father. So, and then a homeboy that I have, just like, it was like some of the things he was saying to Audrey. I was like, oh, I've heard this before.
I love that. See? You know what I'm saying? It's like they don't portray these father figures or mother figures or anything, but they exist,
Yeah, they do. What was Coco is just, she's giving me, she's not a Gemini, but she definitely has a Gemini rising because she's just a little, she's very free. But she was giving me like she likes being a mother, and she's like very out of the way Aquarius.
Yeah.
Yeah. But she was like free. I love like the confidence with herself as well. Like how to navigate that. She wasn't always going to get it right. She wasn't always going to know what's going to like the right thing to do as a parent, but being confident with, like I love doing this and I love being a mom. I don't know, Saquon. I don't know what did you imagine him as?
I mean, at this moment, I'm definitely getting strong earth sign energy.
Well, he has a garden, so there's Taurus in there somewhere.
Yeah, definitely Taurus energy. I think I could also, because he's kind of like typical dude energy in the sense of like, there are ways that he kind of dances around his feelings, like, so I could see that could be actually a sign of a water sign, because sometimes I feel like men water signs struggle with being in their emotions because they see the depth of it. Either they're really good with it or they struggle with it. So
my dad was a Pisces. My dad's a Pisces. He's a very emotional person. Like he cried in front of us as a child. So
my dad too. He's a Scorpio, and he would cry, but also too he had an extreme sense of manipulation.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean Scorpio.
Yeah, no, my dad's a Pisces, and he loved being a dad, and he was just very like, he became a grumpy old man, but as a father, he was very like outwardly emotional. I mean, Mabel's dad, I was like, but does every like person? I always want to say everyone's a Cancer, but I don't know.
I can see Cancer because I do feel like there's a part of him that loves to nurture things, even his children, certainly his wife,
He doesn't seem manipulative. He does have like a slight insecurity in a way that the mother doesn't.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know. See, but I wanted you to tell me what you had written down when you wrote that.
Yeah, I'll see. I'll look through my books. I have been trying because I've like been to all these archives of all these tremendous Black female authors and stuff like that I love, like some of Toni Morrison's stuff and Alice Walker's. And then you'd be like, oh, damn, I hope my shit's organized enough that they'll archive my shit. But anyway, so I'm like, oh, where is that journal? Because I had like a specific notebook with all of that. I like seeing what everybody has to say.
Yeah, if you guys have any guesses, put them in the comments. Somebody made a comment.
I can see. I was thinking Capricorn too. I was thinking maybe Taurus Capricorn energy. Because there is a part of him that likes the work and feels like the work should get through everything,
Maybe he's like a Taurus with a cat moon. Who
Yeah.
knows?
Mhm.
So we get the inspiration for Audrey's name. Shout out to the shirt, Audrey Lord. But what was the inspiration for Mabel's name?
My Trinidadian great grandmother was named Mabel.
Because
Yeah.
that's an elder name. That's an ancestor name for sure. I was like,
Yeah.
Mabel,
Yeah.
but you just make it work, you know?
I know. And it's funny because I'm just like, I don't remember when I decided to name. Now I'm a lot more conscious of naming because I'm like, wow, these names live forever. And I love everybody I name, however I named them. Like Afua is totally inspired off of Queen Afua. That was like one of the people whose books I read that got me conscious when I was young. So I was like, all right. But yeah, I feel like Mabel definitely was just like I was like, yeah, that's a name that was like somebody's grandma who was the bomb or great aunt, and Mabel got named after that. So
I have a joke because I had told my mom what I potentially want my future children's names to be. And I really love the name Mahalia.
that's a
My mother
beautiful
was like,
name.
"Oh, it's just a slave name." And I was like, "What the hell?" She was like, "Why such an old name?" And I was like, "Oh, my mom read this book. She'd be like, Mabel is a slave name." I love it, but like,
I
girl,
like it too. I love it. I love names that feel earthy. Like Mahalia feels like, well, even
yeah,
Mahal. There's a character named Mahal in the book. I don't
yeah.
even know where I got the name Mahal from, but
No, I
Mahalia, that's
caught it because like Mahal. I think in like I know Maha in Maha in Arabic means beautiful,
mm.
or at least that's what I was told. Maybe that person's full name is Mahal. I think we already went over this though, but does Mabel's connection to Whitney Houston represent your own connection with the artist?
Someone said I agree with your mom. uh, hey, hey.
That's
Someone said I'm a Taurus. Saquon gives me Taurus hard work and energy, but kind of sensitive.
yeah, no,
uh,
he's
yeah.
totally does.
Yeah. What was I gonna say? What did you just ask?
Oh, well, we had already gone over this question. I feel like you kind of hit on this. Does Mabel's connection to Whitney Houston represent your own connection with the
Yeah.
artist?
Yeah, totally. I'm so fantasized about Whitney being an out dyke in her 50s with somebody's WNBA retiree.
I
You know
think
what
she would
I'm
have
saying?
lived a much
Man,
longer life if she had got to live in her truth.
I know. I actually read Robin Crawford's memoir, which was pretty decent actually.
Mm.
Like I think not decent. I don't know why I said it like that, but I think for me, I always want more juice. Give me more
Not
juice.
telling me I'm shady. All right, so we're gonna get more into the characters because Queenie
Mm.
was the love of everyone's life, and she was such a significant character. What made you tell her story through Mabel?
Huh. I don't know why. That's a good question. Sometimes I don't know the answers to questions, so I feel kind of awkward, like, I don't know.
It just felt right. That's always a good answer. You just gotta say,
Yeah, it just
yes. It
felt
just felt
right.
right, you know? It was in my spirit, and that's how I did it. You just have to commit.
Yeah, I mean, I like that. I like that as an answer for me. Yeah, like to me, I was just like Queenie was, I don't know, like Queenie was like the doula of all queer love energetically in a way. And will Queenie get her own book? I know Queenie, shoot, we'll see. I would love to write a Queenie book. I would love to write a Queenie book and next generation of these stories of these characters book. Um, but yeah, like to me, I feel like there's ways that I don't know, like I just felt like Audrey and Queenie's connection was so strong.
Mm.
And then Audrey and Mabel's connection was so strong. And I just feel like there's this multi-dimensional kind of energy that we could like all kind of flow and tap into almost. So I think for me, just getting to let in Mabel's kind of liminal space of like between the veil and whatnot, like what are the different ways that even Audrey was channeling open. So yeah, so I love that's what was cool about writing the book is that sometimes you're like, wow, like this is just making sense in its own universe in a way that I can't over even rationalize or logicalize to myself. Is just what is flowing through, you know?
Yeah, no, I feel that, but like you not only put Queenie's story through Mabel, but then Mabel doesn't tell Audrey.
Right. I know. What was that about?
See, this is why I thought you had Aquarius in your chart somewhere. Because I was just like, yeah, girl, I did it. And I did it.
That's the I think it's the Gemini Libra, because I got a lot of Gemini, I got a lot of Libra.
Yeah. No, but Gemini, we're like the FBI. We always have an answer, and it's a long one, always.
Mm.
Why was Queenie's story so important to how we think about Mabel and Audrey's relationship?
Hmm. Yeah, I think for me, like with Queenie, I think like when I was coming into my queerness, like I think every generation of queer folks feel like we was the first gays. This generation.
Yeah.
Because all of our like insights about all of our, memory and legacy is erased, or, straight washed. So I think for me, like even exercising that I had to reimagine and dream for myself what queerness looked like in my grandmother's generation. Like how I think so many of us struggle to live in pride around our queerness because we don't feel like there's anything queer people have done. Like I think it is similar things I had to learn as a Black person too, and a Black queer person. The ways that I've existed before, the ways that my existence is divine and sacred, and magical. So like I
Mhm.
think I feel like it was interesting because like so much of Audrey's, you know, shaping comes from Queenie and Queenie's witchiness and Queenie's like permission to be free and witchy. And I think so much of what she offered Mabel was from, Queenie, So I think like that was a way to sort of, I don't know, like just let them kind of meld. Cause I also think like love, and I don't know if this is like super like, I don't know, I'm just gonna say it like over cheesy or something like that. But I just do feel like with love, like on an ancestral soul level, like you don't know what you come in, what work you're here to do with people and
Mm.
their spirits. Um, what sort of, and this is the thing I think about, and with bad and good relationships, or whatever we would shape them, like there's certain kinds of ways that we come into each other's life and have to truly like I think like Queenie says like when you're healing somebody you're not just healing them, you're healing on behalf of them and their ancestors. You got to be strong. It's like falling in love, and like
That was such a beautiful line. It was like, you know what I mean? Like that moment when Audrey is like desperate in desperation, calls her grandmother, and her grandmother gets to not only be like this magical being, but also be very human.
yeah.
In that moment and be like, babe, you gotta calm down. I don't necessarily have the answer for you right now, but like this is something that's in you, and you have to be grounded in order to sow that into somebody else. I thought that was just such a beautiful. I was definitely in the bed crying, y'all. When reading that phone call, because I was like, oh, that's so much. It was just so much love. You could just feel the love in the book. I loved it. Um, What was the significance of Audrey maintaining a relationship with Neri? And was that a special note for the LGBTQIA plus youth in the Caribbean that we get this, we kind of get this separate, and this is a spoiler, but we get this really kind of, what's the word for it?
Abrupt.
Sudden separation. Yeah.
Mhm.
Abrupt separation. And then we do find out later in the book how they sustain and survive in Trinidad.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I think for me, I guess that word is like my kind of maternalness to my characters to some degree. Because to me, I feel like their love and connection was special and deep, and to me, I didn't feel like, oh, because you come to the States and you interact with someone new that changes your connection. Like I feel like in a lot of ways, um, I don't know, like to me, like there was enough love in Audrey to hold all of the love, that she was experiencing both in Trinidad and in Minneapolis.
Mm.
Maybe that's the polyamory of, Audrey. But I also think like as a young person, so much of my relationships were um very romantic, even my platonic relationships. Like to me, I think that's an aspect of adolescence. I think a lot of us have very queered platonic relationships. Like friends we're obsessed with, friends we're just like, why are you hanging out with that person? Or like y'all dress the same and we like hugging and snuggling. There was just, and I think that continues in some people as they grow older, so like for me, and just kind of thinking about their relationships slash friendship slash romantic relationships, I wanted to like speak to that, like to honor Kiese Black abundance, that like, can exist even in these very traumatic spaces, even with like, Afua and James, his friend who he got framed for murdering. There was like this certain kind of like loving connection that they had with each other, that was just special, and Kiese totally is an inspiration for like.
I mean, the high school setup with her friends, which is also like I loved all the love. That's what had me in tears, was all the love. Like even that Audrey goes to this high school and they, and joins in with Mabel's crew, but that they're supported by other young Black people in the program. And it does remind me of like that Black abundance. Like what Kiese and Laquan, was that his friend's name? See, I be messing up names. But when they was, there's the section in Heavy about Black abundance is him in middle school.
Yes.
And so, that sort of love and partnership and then it also made me think of Adrienne Marie Brown when we interviewed her for the author chat. And she was making a note about like the intimacy you can have with your friends. That we tend to only think about intimacy as being a thing with an intimate partner or someone that we are, and that partner being the partner and the only one. And not that, she had to work towards having intimacy with her friends. And I remember taking that like, yo, I need to get to that point, because like you realize how guarded you are with your friends, and like where did I get that from? Like where did I get that guardedness that says I can't love my friends deeply, I can't have this level of comfort and intimacy with them, and not that intimacy has to explicitly be sexual, but like this intimacy of like deep love can exist amongst us.
Yeah, totally. Like kind of like so, like I totally have friends who are like my soulmates, who I go on vacation with, who I process things with, and I definitely process so much with my wife, but it doesn't like replace, the ways that my friends, show up for me and make me feel seen and witnessed. So, yeah, definitely, you know.
Okay, can you speak on the symbolism of the ending?
Mm.
Was there something explicit, like were we supposed to walk away with an explicit thought about the ending? Or was it meant to be up to the reader's interpretation?
I feel like initially when I wrote it, I wanted it to be up to the reader's interpretation. But some of y'all interpretation, just kidding. But
You might not be kidding, because people do really, maybe are we thinking too hard about it? Like,
yeah, like to me, I just felt like they just like are somewhere in the world doing them. Like I feel like they transmuted, you know? And like to me, I wanted to leave it to where like, yo, maybe there could be another book, another opportunity to re-engage the characters. Like that's really where my thinking was.
yeah.
And I kind of, it's so funny because the book has been out for 2 years. So like just kind of it'll be interesting, like if you were to look at other interviews and people, because people ask, about the ending, obviously, and other spaces. And at first I would try to be coy and be like, well, what do you think? And then people's like, that they dead, they gone, they dead. And I'm like,
They
no,
flew off the roller coaster.
Lord, you know what I'm saying? But yeah,
Ah.
people saying, escaping their hardships, talking about, ancestors flying. And I do feel like for me, there really was this sense of freedom and just being like, yeah, like there's always these ways that white people feel like they always got us. Like they always think they got us. You know what I mean? They're like, oh, we gonna slave you. We gonna take away your religion.
Her accent.
Culture. You say what?
Not the accent though.
Sorry. But like but like, yeah, like whatever the fuck they think they doing, like okay, so I was just in St. Croix and where my dad is from in the Virgin
Mhm.
Islands, and then I was in Cameroon where my wife is from. So, in the past 2 months, in fact, and in St. Croix, I went to one of the like plantations, the like sugar plantations. And then I also went to like, and I'm gonna call it like a concentration camp of Africans ancestors because they want to call it slave markets. And I'm like, well, they wasn't slaves. First of all, they were people. And secondly, there was more than just selling. Like y'all make it seem like it was a market. No, this was a concentration camp, right? And like, and I'm there and like the terror, like palpably, like you feel it in your body, like the energy don't leave them places, and ever. You know what I'm saying? Just like, when people say going to Auschwitz, you can still smell it. And this is the case in any place where, these kinds of torture happen. So,
Yeah.
anyways, like, and how this relates back to the book. And I think the book really does talk about Black abundance, Black resilience, but not in this way that's makes us seem magical. Like, we definitely are in the trauma. And still somehow these white folks don't got us. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like when I'm walking around Cameroon and just like the beauty and the bounce when I'm around Black people, like, so I just feel like in thinking about where, the ending or like the symbolism, like to me, it's kind of like, yeah, like literally this was supposed to be the end, for both of them in a way, these moments of their life. But so anyways, and I like, are you from New York or New Jersey? Where are you from?
No, I lived in New York though in the
Okay.
early 2000s. So from
Okay,
like
maybe we overlap then.
2005. I left in 2013.
Okay, yeah, I lived there 2006 to 2010.
We were there about
Um,
the same time, but what
that's
part
so
of New
sweet.
York were you in?
I was in Bed-Stuy and
So
Crown
was
Heights.
I. On what avenue?
I was on no, I was on Macon and between
Bedford and Nostrand?
no, the other one. If you go on the other,
Nostrand and Troop? North no, it's Bedford, Nostrand. No,
I was
because
like between Nordstrom and Troop, but I forget the exact streets. Dang, it's been that long. But I lived on
yeah,
Macon.
so we were like a block away from each other because I was on Madison. Well, it's Madison. Is it Green? Then Macon? Yeah. I was on if you're walking down Nostrand
Mercy, thank
Avenue.
you, Mina.
Okay, yeah, mercy. Thank y'all. If you're walking down, it's been like been almost a decade since I lived in New York.
Yeah,
If you're walking down Nostrand Avenue, like towards Gates or north on Nostrand, you know where Sister's place was? It like to do like the Hotep stuff, but like they had like I lived around the corner from Sister's place.
okay, okay.
That's where I stayed. I miss it, but I don't miss it. I could never go back, but I miss it.
Yeah, I know. I love New York. Well, what were we talking? Oh yeah, yeah. So you live in New York. So anyway, so like I love Coney Island. Like
Yes.
when
My
I
mother
first
would
went to
never let me get on the roller coaster because she said you
Cyclone,
would fall off. And it's so
yeah.
funny in the end of your book, they kind of just fly. Well, they're not on the roller coaster, they're on the Ferris wheel.
Cyclone. No, the Cyclone. Have you been on the
Okay.
Cyclone?
No, I have a fear of roller coasters because of my mother. Like as a child,
Mm,
when we would go back to New York to see her family in Brooklyn. My mom's from Brooklyn. And so
okay.
we would go, every other month or so. And the few times I went to Coney Island, I remember because my dad likes to get on roller coasters, and my mom be like, "No, that rickety old thing, you're not getting on it. No." And so I just like always, I was like, "Oh no, roller coasters like these big bad things." So I would never get on it.
Yeah, yeah. No, yeah, they can be scary, but I like thrills and heights and
I like
yeah.
2 feet on the ground. It's so bad. It's so bad. I guess this kind of leads into well, see, we have all these books about these questions about your writing process. But you're
Wow.
just like, no, I just wrote the book. Because the ending of the book seems so sacred. Did you see yourself building a series or a life after? Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like right now I'm working on a second book and I'm so in love with that book. Like when I was working on this book, I was like, oh my gosh, like, oh my God, how could I ever leave them? I love them. And I wanted to think of, and actually this is, yeah, we'll talk about that later, but I'm in a process of making this book into a film, which,
Yeah.
those processes are kind of wild. So we'll see. But anyway, so I feel like that's kind of the space where I get to reimagine some of the aspects of the
Mm,
book. But in writing a new book, like there's just this whole new world that I'm delving into that's super exciting and fun, and brand new characters that are just on some new shit. So yeah, like I think with my writing process, it's interesting because what I learned with my first book is that you literally can put anything you want in your book and give yourself a lot of, kind of like there's ways that I really did like sit with my ancestors, sit with my kind of like, just with my spirit and being like, okay, like what is just coming through, and try not to like overthink it and just like put it on the page.
yeah.
Um, yeah, but I do feel like people just need, to feel like comfortable with writing what they want to write. I think that's when I wrote my best writing. And when I was feeling like stuck or tired, like I would go to poetry, I would go to something else that would flow rather than being like, I need to write, I'm writing a book. Like to me, that's so white supremacist, kind of like these sort of ways we force creative labor out of ourselves,
Yeah.
So yeah.
Mm. Okay, so we have two more questions, and then we're gonna wrap this up because we're hitting on the hour mark. But you were a narrator on the audiobook for The Stars and
Mhm.
the Blackness Between Them, and it sounded amazing.
Thank
So for
you.
your next book, would you do that again? Did you enjoy the process of being your own narrator?
Yeah, it was fun. I think I would do even better if I did it again. Like to me, I was like, because I've done performance and whatnot before, and I was like, who they got, reading
I
who
got
they,
this. I got this.
right. And my, and then but to me, I wanted to get an actual Trini to do Audrey, but we ended up going with Bonnie Turpin, who's like so amazing. She's
Mhm.
amazing. And actually, because I was listening to Heavy while I was like, can I get Kiese? And they're like, listen, Kiese don't want time for you. And we gonna need
If you had
somebody.
asked him, he probably would have said yes though, because he don't turn nothing down.
I know, but then does he show up?
You know he does. He just don't.
Well, that's good. That's good to know. Maybe the next book. He's just like, you
But
stay in
because
my little emails.
yeah.
But I loved it. It was fun. It was just like 2 days of reading the book and really trying to get into the emotion of a 16-year-old. Like that's kind of what I had to play with. And, they had a director from LA who was like in the little headphones. Yeah, so it was cool. It was fun. And I would do it again for sure. Yeah.
Okay. So the last question is, as you've stated, we now know it's becoming a film. And that's like, we pick great books because almost all the books we've read are becoming either film or TV series.
Is Heavy becoming something?
Issa Rae's production. Yeah. Yeah, like so when
And
we
I could talk. See, that's a good segue to talk to Cassie. Like, you having a book adapted. I'm having a book adapted. I know I'm teasing.
So, is there anything you would change from the book to a scene? Since you also have a background in filmmaking. So I
Hmm.
imagine for you this might be a process that you can be much more invested in.
Let me tell you the real tea.
Yeah.
So, and I'll tell you the real tea off camera, but I'll tell you the baby real tea right now.
Yeah.
This was initially a screenplay idea, this book.
Uh-huh.
But I was like, okay, girl, you don't really know how to write screenplays. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, I didn't. Like, everything I'd written, like, all the film work I did was like experimental, kind of like witchy black girl shit. You know what I'm saying? And
Uh-huh.
then I had actually started writing a scripted series, which I could send you some links to. It's not like public, um but yeah, so I started writing scripted things, and then this came as an idea, and I was like, oh, this would be a good film. And then I was like, "Ugh," but just working on my little baby productions, I'm like, how am I ever going to get this made? Because that's the thing about screenplays. Like you can, so I was like, let me just write it in chapters. And then it became a book. but initially it was a screenplay idea.
And you have a little seal on here. You won the Coretta Scott King Award.
Mhm. Won't he do it? Just kidding. But
No, but he did though. They did it. You did it. They and you. Y'all
man,
did
and when they call you for the Coretta Scott King Award, it's at like 6:30 in the morning.
it.
And it's like all of these librarians who are just like in a hall somewhere being like, "Are you Junauda Petrus?" And I'm like, "Yeah." They're like, "We want to call you to let you know you got the Coretta Scott King Award." And like you hear all this clapping. It was so beautiful. Oh, such a good moment.
No, it tracks. I'm so excited to see. Is it going to be has it been announced? Because I like just Googled it. I was like, wait.
No, no, no. It's like totally like pre-development, which I'm okay with. Like for
Okay.
me, it's just like I have a really good team and I'm really given a lot of space to actually influence the process.
I am
You
not
know?
going to shade that other teen Black activist book that got turned into a movie, but if that movie that should be remained unnamed, that had a bit of colorism in the casting, if it can get made, this can get made. Y'all know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, let's please off camera talk about this stuff.
This can get made for sure. This has to be made.
Oh
But I
yeah.
need the casting to, come correct.
Listen, you
I'll show
already
you my
know.
bag.
Listen, you already know. In my book, even on the cover, I was
Mm.
like, I said brown them up again and brown them up again. Because that is definitely what I need to see, like I haven't seen it yet, and yeah, and I think like what happens because because I do love film and someone's like, what movie? Um, um, sorry, I'm just laughing now. Um, but like, yeah, like I think for me, because I'm an artist and have very much intentionality and think about aesthetic and I wrote it into the book, like for me, I definitely, yeah, I'm just very involved. I'm very involved.
People want to know what movie I'm talking about. The book cover has a girl. I think she's holding like a thing in her hand. I have the book somewhere in this room too. Amandla Steinberg. Was she? Yeah, it was Amandla that played in the movie.
Yeah, the hate you give.
I just had to figure it out. No, In the Heights was all no Black people.
In the heights, light skinned and we light skinned in the heights.
Dominican, Peruvian, Chilean, not Black.
I'm just like, why they do that? No, I was like, and y'all thought
Y'all
y'all
thought y'all ate.
no,
But
and I'm glad somebody said some
Encanto was
shit.
cute though. Encanto was cute. He made up for it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think like the thing is he's talented. It doesn't mean people have consciousness or well, what, you don't think he that talented?
Because I have a Peloton and I did the Encanto Peloton ride because I was like, I like the movie and it's just all the music. And I was like, I'll turn this shit off. Turn it off. But it works. Like, it's a great movie though. Like, it works in the body of the movie. But it's like, this is so corny. This is so cheesy. We know it's good.
Yeah,
So
I mean, yeah, we could get on a whole tangent about him and shit. I think for me, there's things that like I'm like, because I forever didn't see Hamilton. Like everybody, like Hamilton. And then when I finally saw Hamilton, I was like, oh damn, this shit is actually so problematic. But like, it's really kind of good. Like I can see why people went crazy for it. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, I'm here like in my feelings with it, and I know this is wrong. So I don't know. It's kind of like I am peeping his formula. Like, okay, now what's the formula? Because he paid.
I need to get back to New York. I had meant to get back to New York earlier this year because I wanted to see Slave Play, but I missed that.
Listen, let's coordinate going to New York. So I'm headed to New York in a couple weeks. Actually, I'm gonna be in DC at the Kennedy Center. I wrote a libretto for this thing there. So I'll be like, wait a minute, where do you live? North Carolina?
Yeah, I'm in Charlotte.
Okay, cool.
I just be traveling. I used to live in DC, I'm gonna slide in your DMs. We're gonna work something out. But I don't think Slave Play, I think it closed already. The second run of it already closed. But I'll have to look out and see when Slave Play is happening again. Because Jeremy O'Hara pops up. He's on TikTok, he is.
Yeah,
Getting
I see him
mad.
on Instagram.
But he's kind of fun, to be honest.
Yeah, he seems like a very interesting person. Actually, yeah, I think me and him have the same film agent. I just
Because the way he engaged with criticism, I'm like, even if I agree with the criticism, I kind of like you.
yeah, I know. I'm just like fascinated by like his or their ability. I don't know
Her
their
pronouns,
pronouns,
yeah.
but um I'm like fascinated with their ability to just really be outwardly wildly themselves in spaces that I think a lot of people feel like they have to, kind of fit in and conform. And I
Yeah.
think like they're, are like one of the artists, like like there's so many dope artists that are like queer and black and kind of transgressive and fascinating ways.
Mm.
But I would love to see Slave Play. I've heard so much about it.
I would have just had my own thoughts about it. But I liked his work on
Exactly.
I liked their work on Zola.
Yeah, I haven't seen Zola, but I think I might
A
go
little
try seeing.
problematic. It's a little problematic, but it's very camp.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I like a good camp film. It's camp.
Well, and
A
I
little
just love
problematic.
film and just seeing like, okay, how they doing it? Because you know what I'm saying? Because also too, it's an adaptation, actually.
They leaned into the campiness of it and it works, but I do think also understand the critique about how it addresses SA or sexual assault. But
Mm.
I enjoyed the movie. So maybe we could talk about it after you watch it because you could definitely stream that.
Okay, right on, right on. Definitely. I would love to talk to you
I'm
about
going to
it.
be late for class though, so we have to end this here. This was such a good time. Thank you so much because I know you're so busy. And I want to say, you have the nicest away email message. You were like, "Thank you for your sweetness." I'm like, I need to steal that. Like, I would never think to like put those words together. Thank you for your sweetness. Is that what it is? I forget because I was
Something
like,
like that.
I was like, this is so beautiful. Like, I feel like she's totally not replying to my email, but I feel love.
I feel seen.
I
Yeah,
just
no, I was like, there was a couple of weeks where I was like, oh my gosh. And then I'm so glad I didn't miss it though, because oh my God. That's what's nice about having someone helping me with my emails. Like they're just gathering up my life. And Lord have mercy, Lord, I need it. But let's set up a time to talk. 'Cause I would love to talk to you about some things that we've already
okay.
didn't get to
Once I
address
finish
yet.
with my class tonight, I will DM you. But thank you for joining so much, and thank y'all for tuning in. I hope y'all enjoyed this. Somebody has said you're magical, and they were right. When we announced it, they were like, "Oh, she's so magical," and that it's a blessing.
Yo,
Thank you.
yo.
Have a good night. Bye.
Bye.